My name is Grant Allen. I'm with Western Kentucky Raptor Center, and we ended up getting these owlets from a storm that blew them out of a nest in Henderson, Kentucky. So we got these owlets less than 24 hours ago. These owlets are still in their nestling stage, not their branching stage. So if possible, we are going to re-nest these guys and get them back with their parents. So right now we're feeding them before we go and re-nest them. We want them to be full, so that way if mom and dad take a while to be able to go hunting their prey and feed them, that they're plenty full and aren't going to go hungry. I'm not really too worried about taking precautions to them seeing a human feed them, since we're not really worried about imprinting, since we're going to go and re-nest them. So right now I'm cutting branches. I'm cutting branches to make their nest. I'm trying to make their nest as naturally as possible, so that way when the parents come and see them in the nest, they don't think that it is too out of the ordinary where they're going to be able to come back and still feed their babies. Rehabbing isn't playing with animals. It's mainly scooping poop, taking care of enclosures, making sure that the animals are taken care of, feeding them day and night, sometimes 2 hours in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's using a chainsaw to cut up all these branches to make them a nest, so that way they can be re-nested and back out in the wild soon. So right now I am using the baskets and natural material. We want the natural material so that way the mom and dad don't throw up any red flags when they're coming to feed their babies. I also want the basket to be deep enough where the owls can peek out so a mom and dad can see them, but deep enough that they can shrink down inside it, so that way they can hide from the elements like the wind and the rain. We also want to have holes in the baskets and natural material in the basket, so that way there's plenty of drainage. We want drainage in there so that way the water doesn't fill up and drown the owls in the process. So now that I have the nest finished, I'm going to take the nest and the owlets back out to where they were found, so that way the parents can come back and feed them.
See if you can set it this way, because I think that you get more support on your tree. Just support that on this picture.
So the reason why I chose this tree to put the nest in is due to the fact that the owlets were found around this area. A lot of the trees have fallen down around this area, so we don't know which tree the nest was actually in. So we want to make sure that the mom and dad have an aware about where the nest was, so that way they can still find their babies and come and feed them. So I'm using this rope to be able to tie down the nest. I want to use this rope because it's natural looking, and I don't want the mom and dad to throw up red flags again. So we want to make sure the nest is tied down securely, so that way it doesn't blow away in the wind, but we also want it to be discreet, so that way the mom and dad don't throw up any red flags.
Now to add the last bit of details. Branches from the tree the nest is now in, just to make it look like it belongs here.
So now that the nest is up, I think it's as perfect as it can get. Now it's time to go get the owlets and put them in.
should make parents come back.
And we heard them this morning.
Good. That's what we wanted. We want you to hear them. Believe me.
So as I'm climbing the ladder, I know I have these 2 baby owls in my hand, and I want to make sure that they don't fall out of the nest again or fall out of my hand. So I've got precious cargo. I need to get them up to the nest and get them in the nest safely. Man, isn't this a cute nest, guys? I wish I had a view like this in my room. Success. Now we have the owlets renested. Now all we have to do is wait to see if the mom and dad come back and feed them. All we can do is hope and pray that the mom and dad come back and feed them, and then they're successfully renested and they can be back out in the wild. The next night we get a call from the homeowners. One of the owlets have fallen out of the nest. My heart sinks to my stomach. My first thought is the parents aren't coming back and feeding them. The owlet must have jumped out of the nest because it was hungry. So we went back to Henderson to see why the owlet fell out of the nest. So I went up to the nest to check to see if there's any signs that the parents have been back and to check on the owlet that is still up there. Success. The parents have been coming back and feeding them. I couldn't be more excited to see 3 dead starlings and 1 rabbit head. Now it's time for me to take the owlet back up in the nest and hope that it doesn't jump back out. I'm also placing another owlet back up there that was abandoned by its mother a few days ago. So now we're going to place 2 more owlets up there, so there's a total of 3 owlets in the nest. I'm adding this 3rd owlet back up into the nest. The reason why I'm adding this 3rd owlet is it is so much better to be out in the wild with parents rather than in a rehabilitation center and then having to be released back out in the wild by itself. We know that we can raise this and get it back out into the wild, but it is just so much better for this owlet to be with parents and back out in the wild. So as I'm putting these owlets back up in the tree, I can't help but to think, why did this owlet fall out? I'm wondering, maybe mom and dad were feeding them and the siblings were fighting over food and it just happened to fall out. So I'm hoping that these 2 owlets will be able to stay back up in the nest. All right. Stay up here, buddy. Success. 3 owlets up in the nest. Mom and dad are feeding them. Checked on in the past few days, none of them have jumped out. I call this a happy ending. If you'd like to learn more about our wildlife rehabilitation and all of our rescues, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, or you can go check us out at nurturetonature.org. You can find all these links in the description below.